Thank you to our friends at RefReps for their support of the From A to Zebra podcast. The full library of episodes is now available at refreps.com under the resources page. And now, Season 3, Episode 6, Letter Y, Youth. Join host Dana Pappas with special guest Travis Fanning on the From A to Zebra podcast.
Welcome back to the From A to Zebra podcast. I'm Dana Pappas. My co-host, Nate Acosta, can't be with us for this episode, so I'm going to dive right in. On this episode, we were talking about the letter Y and the topic of youth and officiating. Our guest is a current high school and collegiate basketball and volleyball official who has a passion for finding a way to get more young people interested in officiating in all sports. Our guest began his own officiating career when he was in the 9th grade, and he's officiated for 5 years. In addition to high school basketball and volleyball, he is an NAIA basketball official and works collegiate volleyball in divisions 1 through 3, most recently being hired into the Big South for the 2026 season. Our guest today is Travis Fanning. Travis, welcome to the show. Great to see you.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And I'm excited about our conversation. You and I have already had one talk, and I'm hoping that we are able to have the same energy as we did in that very organic conversation we had recently. So we're going to jump in. Can you talk about your own officiating journey? How and why did you get started as an official? Which sports have you worked, and how'd you get into collegiate officiating?
Yes, ma'am. So I'll start with how I began getting into officiating. I played middle school sports, preferably middle school basketball, from 6th grade into 8th grade. Probably did not have a future in playing high school basketball. I just did not really understand the plays. I could understand the rules better than anything. So I messaged our Little League basketball director and said, hey, I would like to officiate. I said, I think that's a better path for me. And she said, okay. So I took the BHSL test and went out mid-January of my freshman year in high school, and in khaki shorts and a shirt from Dick's Sporting Goods and a little pea whistle, I refereed about 8 games while I was being taught by our director of youth league. So that started me out. And then I just kept falling in love with it. I enjoyed it. So when middle school season rolled around, I would show up to the middle school games for volleyball, and I'd keep book. And so then the assigner asked him, I said, would you be okay if I R2'd instead of keeping book? And he said, we'd love to have you. So I started R2ing volleyball. Then middle school season basketball rolled around, and they forgot to schedule officials for a game. And he called me and he said, are you able to get home and get your stuff? And I said, yes, I would love to. So my faithful grandmother came and picked me up from school and took me home. I grabbed my little duffel bag and we rolled on back to the school I went to, and I sat there from 3:30 till 5 o'clock when my other official arrived, and we worked a middle school boys and middle school girls basketball game. It was Blaine County versus George Wythe Middle School, an absolutely wonderful game. And I worked a couple games for him that year. Then baseball and softball season rolled around, and I was like, well, I want to work it too. So I worked some middle school baseball and some middle school softball that year. And from there, it kind of just went up. When I turned 16, I could start officiating middle school and high school in West Virginia. Mainly middle school, I could do some line judging. So I started working up there, got some wonderful trainings from wonderful officials who I still get to work with. My junior year in high school, I decided to join the local board in Virginia, Roanoke Valley Volleyball Officials Association, and we worked me as a line judge. So that's where I got to start out, because once you're 16, you could start line judging high school in Virginia. So I started line judging, did a few games there. And then from there, I got hired into college line judging. BJ Willard took me with her to a college volleyball game. And from there, we just slowly went up the hill, went to some basketball camps this past summer, and was told that I was hired into NAIA. So I got to work a couple NAIA games this year for basketball. I got to work a Division II scrimmage at Concord University. And volleyball, I worked few different levels of matches. I worked some R2 in Division 3, then line judging Division 3 and Division 2, and worked 3 men's NAIA games, which I have never worked before, never worked men's, and I had the opportunity to work 3 men's NAIA games this year at Bluefield University.
Fun.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, definitely a different scene from women's. It is night and day, but I was on my way home from my NAIA basketball game, and they called me and they said, we need an official at a tri-match at Bluefield University. Are you able to stop in? And I said, of course. I said, I don't have my volleyball stuff. So in black basketball pants, a blue full button-up shirt, and black tennis shoes, I officiated some men's volleyball. Wonderful times.
That is great. You're like, I have some clothes. They're not the right ones.
Yeah, I got clothes, but not right. Yeah, I got a whistle. That's what matters the most. Got the whistle.
That, it was good. You were complete. So love to hear about your journey. And you and I actually met last year at the PAVO, the Professional Association of Volleyball Officials Convention in Kansas City, which is one of my
Yes, ma'am.
favorite events to go to every year. Met you, and you were hanging out with all of the kind of the royalty of the PAVO world, Marsha Alterman and Joan Powell, and all of the people that are they're like the icons.
Yes, ma'am.
We're hanging out with them. So I was like, who is this guy? And we got introduced. And what was that experience like at the event? Was it your first? And what were some of your main takeaways from your attendance at the convention?
So I loved the event so much. I was so excited I got to go. It took a little convincing to get to go, but my parents were okay with it, and I had somebody to go with me. So they were like, go ahead, have fun. I got there and I started just talking. I mean, that's what you've got to do. You've got to communicate. And I just started talking to random people, and they would introduce me to somebody, and then they'd introduce me to somebody. And next thing I know, like you said, I'm talking to Joan Powell and Marsha Alderman, the mothers of PAVO, the creators. So I had went from first time to meeting the creators and executives of PAVO. And it was just a blessing to get to have that opportunity and to get to see wonderful officials working 4 wonderful matches. That was just impressive to see those wonderful people. And I learned so much from how to relieve your stress, how the review system works, the signals for the review system. So, I mean, it was just a wonderful opportunity to have. And I would recommend any collegiate volleyball official, scorekeeper, libero tracker, if they are a member of PAVO, I would highly recommend make sure you go to the conference this year in San Antonio.
Well, they're gonna love that plug. The
Yes.
PAVO people are gonna love you for that. You and I got to meet because I sat down at the table the last morning, and Marsha actually goes, "There's someone you have to meet," and she connected us, and I was just like, "You're right. I do need to meet this guy." And I was just so impressed by your enthusiasm, and you were so engaged and just making friends and networking. It was cool to see, because a lot of times we go to those events, and those of us who've been in it for a while, you kind of see the same
Yes.
people at times. So it's just like, wait a minute, there's a fresh face. So we were really happy to have you there, and I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And hopefully I'll see you again in San Antonio this
Yes.
winter. So looking forward to that already. So Travis, we're going to jump into the topic of the day, which is
Okay.
youth. You're interested in kind of lowering that median age of officials, which right now is around 58.2. Why do you feel that it's important to infuse youth into the officiating population?
So I believe that it is important. We've got to have youth in officiating because, like every other workforce, you have to have a generation ready to roll in, take over, take the lead, and keep that circle and keep the ball rolling, because if we do not, then the line ends. And if the line ends in officiating, then you no longer have anybody to mediate the games and help teach others the rules. And I saw something on Facebook and it said, without officials, it's just practice. And I believe that's true, because to have a game, you have to have somebody there to help with the safety, help with the rules. I believe that in every game, we teach the players and coaches something in some way by them asking a question, well, what did I do wrong? And then we explain it to them. And they're like, okay. Or a rules question by a coach. And we've got to have youth to continue the game. We talked about how the numbers of moving into college sports as a player are small, and then professional is even smaller. But all these people, these kids love playing sports, but they don't realize that there's another side to it, and it's not the dark side, but they can help their younger siblings be able to play sports one day, have a future for their kids to play sports one day. So we've got to get that median age down lower so that we know, yes, we've got another generation of officials rolling in, and we've got a generation of wonderful officials rolling in.
Yeah, you're so right, Travis. And we've talked a lot about it where we know we have a population of officials that are veteran, and then we have a population of officials that are young, and we're missing that middle section. And right now, we're trying to figure out how do we replenish that because those veterans who have been doing this for 30, 40 years, who we appreciate, who have been our mentors, the people that have made us all better and gotten us to where we were, they're going to need to retire at some
Yes.
point. Who are we passing that torch to? So I think that you said that so well as far as just keeping the vitality of the sport, whatever sport it is. It's really imperative. And you're obviously on the younger side of the officiating population yourself. So what is it about officiating that you love? And what's made you want to advance from a high school sports space into the collegiate space?
Ever since I officiated my first game, I loved it because I go out there I go out there so that the kids can have fun, seeing the smile on their faces and getting to see them have fun. I remember when I played middle school basketball, even if I got 28 seconds on the court in a game, I enjoyed every second of it because it gave me something to look forward to in the evenings, the practices, the people I got to spend the evenings with. And I want every generation to have that opportunity. I want the kids to be able to have a wonderful time, the college students to continue their dreams from high school into college, and then know that some of them are going to the professional level, that they are going to make a career out of it. I want them to have the love for sports that I do, even though we're on two different ends of the spectrums, but knowing that we both are there for the same reason. I'm there because I love the sport, and they're there because they love the sport means the world to me.
And, that love of sport is so important. And I think about it often, when I met you, and there's several officials that are in kind of your age group that have this passion and this knowledge and are just taking to it so well. And it has to be kind of cool for those middle school kids and high school kids to see you walk out and see somebody who's close to their age, because then it might spark that interest in them as far as, man, this is something I
Yes.
can do because you don't we just said median age is 58.2. So they don't see a lot of people that are kind of in their generation. So that has to be something that's somewhat aspirational for the student athletes, which I love. I think that's super cool.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, as we're talking about the current population of officials, what can the current officials do to help bring those younger officials into officiating? How can veteran officials welcome those young people into the officiating family?
That's a wonderful question because if I have a chance to bring up officiating anywhere, I'm going to do it because there could be somebody that played sports 10 years ago and never realized, well, that's an opportunity I never thought of. And that could spark a question. On my way home from the PAVO conference, I ran into a girl and she said she had played volleyball for a high school near where I live. And I said, well, have you ever thought about officiating as a part-time job just to have something to do? And she said, no, I've never really thought about it. Well, while we were sitting in the airport waiting on our layover, we had talked about it and we connected, and I got her contact information, and have now passed it on so that she can start her officiating career, because we got to have the younger folks, as we know, and the older generation needs to just speak to anybody they can about it. If they see a kid or a college athlete that they think would be a wonderful fit, they just need to talk officiating with them, connect with them somehow, some way, so that they can pass that torch. And they need to be welcoming. We have to have welcoming officials. We have to know that our training officials are giving a welcoming, warm hug to the younger generation coming in, so that we know when they pass that torch down to them, that they're giving it to a steady mind, a steady hand to carry on that torch.
And that, that embrace, I always say you need to embrace them when they come in and,
Yes.
make sure that these new officials have mentors, make sure that they have people
Yes,
to
ma'am.
kind of hold their hand through the process, because when you get in, you don't know where to buy your uniforms. You don't know where local meetings are. You don't know where you have
Yes, ma'am.
to dues. So there's all of these things that really have nothing to do with the X's and O's of
Yes,
officiating,
ma'am.
that the current officials have really got to give them that, like you said, give them the warm hug as they come in, instead of just, oh, here's this young kid. I don't want him to take my games. That's something we always talk about. Like
Yes.
there's
Yes.
plenty of games to go around. So
Yes.
just making sure that we're providing a soft landing space for people,
Yes, ma'am.
because it's such a great thing to be a part of, a great family to be a part of. And it all starts with that initial handshake, that initial welcome, and really being a place that somebody wants to spend their free
Yes, ma'am.
time.
I mean, I think back to my first season in Roanoke Valley volleyball. Right after I signed up, I got an email that says, receive a mentor. And of course, I filled out that form because I knew I needed somebody to help me through it. And they connected me with somebody. And when you get a mentor in the Roanoke Valley, they come to your games, they'll watch when they're not working, they'll work you guys together so you connect. Find somebody that is able to help you and teach you. And I think we have about 20 mentors, 25 mentors. So usually every year, each new official will have a mentor. And even as a second or third year official in Roanoke Valley, I can still ask for a mentor to have somebody to help. And then once I'm comfortable enough to know, okay, I can now go be a mentor for somebody, we can sign up to offer to be a mentor to somebody. And we need that. We need these people that are getting mentors to not just run away and forget what somebody helped them with, but for them to, in return, give back to the board and help out and be somebody's mentor for them.
Gosh, amen. That's so well said, because it's that constant reminder to veteran officials, if somebody helped you get to where you are, like,
Yes.
make sure you're extending that hand back to the next generation, because they need that. And it's great for you as you were coming in to have the people that you could call about game situations, or even like deadlines. It can be
Yes.
things that are kind of off the court responsibilities, but I think that it's so important to have that. You got to have a sounding board. And hey, have you ever experienced this? Or I'm going to this school. Where do I park? I mean, there's things
Yes.
that are,
Yes.
you don't know if you don't know, and it's nice to have somebody to kind of point you in that direction. So
Yes,
I
ma'am.
love, great program. It sounds like Roanoke Valley has. That sounds
Yes,
awesome.
ma'am.
So as I mentioned, you and I had a really good conversation a couple of months ago, and we talked a lot about recruitment and properly training officials. And you had said something that just really hit home with me, and I wrote it down because it was so important. You said that we need to hold officials to a standard and structure that's similar to the one that we hold coaches and players to. Can you tell us about what that accomplishes and why you think it's important?
Yes, ma'am. So I always think about you see where coaches are held to a standard. They have to be dressed nicely at games. They have to act appropriately at games. The players have to be at practice on time. They have to do so many sprints, or they have to do so much to stay in line to be able to play. They have to attend their classes. And in my opinion, as an official, we need to be held to that same standard. We need to come to the game dressed for the game, for the job that we are going to do. We don't need to show up at a game in flip flops and shorts and a t shirt. You need to come in nicer shoes, tennis shoes, nice pants, jeans, something that represents I'm here to do a job and I'm going to do it as I was taught. We need to make sure that we're staying on top and staying key with the rules. We've got to remember to study to make sure that when that test comes out, we're ready to take it. And we know that when we take that test, we're going to pass. We're going to come out with a good grade that says, I can do this again. I still know the rules. I'm learning the new rules. I'm ready to go officiate. And we've got to hold our officials to that standard. I know that we're getting a shortage on official and our numbers are slowly going back up after COVID, but we need to show the fans that, hey, the officials are trying. They're not just throwing on a shirt, coming out here and officiating. They're showing up dressed nicely. They're going to classes. They're going to camps. They're going to the conventions to learn more, to connect, to help get better on the rules and help better the game for the youth.
That is so true. And I think there's kind of a misconception sometimes in officiating where you'll hear people say, well, we don't want to give the officials more to do because they're essentially volunteering. They don't want more standards, but every official I've talked to who really cares about it, they want the training. They
Yes.
want given information. They want to learn. They want to get better because nobody wants to go into this and do a poor job it because they care about it. They do it because they love it. So anytime I hear people say, well, the officials don't want more training, I don't believe that. I think that the officials who are really in it for all the right reasons, which is a vast majority of them, 99% of
Yes,
them
ma'am.
for the right reasons, they want the educational tools, they
Yes,
want the
ma'am.
resources. So I think when you had said that, I was like, oh, I'm writing that down because it was just so well said that, we're in our world at the NFHS, we're in interscholastic athletics. We're education based. So it should be
Yes,
about
ma'am.
learning and it should be about growth and improvement and all of those things. So it was such a well stated thing. I was like, we're adding that to the podcast question. So so what do you think are some of the reasons that high school students or other young people do not get involved in officiating? And how can veteran officials help to minimize or eliminate those reasons or barriers?
I think back to what my parents tell me every time I'm going to the game. They tell me, be safe while you're refereeing. That should not be a saying that we should have to tell our officials, be safe while you're refereeing. We have parents who are acting out of control, storming the court at the officials, meeting them in the parking lot after the game, threatening our officials on social media, threatening them over the phone. I mean, in many different ways. And I think the players see that and they're just like, I don't want to put myself through that. I mean, I think of every time I go in a game, I don't know what might happen. I could have a mom out of the stands, come down behind me and hit me. But I don't know. But that's not my main concern. My main concern is the safety and the plays of those kids. And we need the parents to hop on board and understand we're trying, we're there for their kids. We're not there just for the money. We're not there to ruin their kids' day or try and ruin their career, but we're there to make sure they're safe and make sure they're having fun. And I think if we could get the parents on board to say, hey, listen, they're actually out here trying. They're giving it their all. Then the kids would be like, yes, I could be an official one day. I feel safe when I'm doing it. And once they see that it is safe and that we have protection, then I think there would be more youth come into it. But until we get the safety net up a little more and kind of get the parents and fans under control and keep the fights down, I think we're going to have an issue having youth come into officiating.
I agree because that is a deterrent, and even if they see it on social media and it's not even the level that they play, it might be something they see in a collegiate sport or a professional sport, there's still that trickle down effect, and
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think that, how do we clean that up, and how do we make sure that officials are safe, that officials that their only worry is the 10 kids on the court in a
Yes, ma'am.
basketball game or the 22 players on a football field. They shouldn't have to worry about the fan in row 24 that is having a bad day and they
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
take out on the officials. So I think that is certainly an issue, and I think that veteran officials can do some things to kind of coach the younger officials about
Yes,
preventive
ma'am.
officiating and some of the heightened sense of awareness and some of the things so that there are things that you just can't control and that you don't see happening.
Yes, ma'am.
But if there's ways you can be preventive and ways that you could just
Yes,
be
ma'am.
aware of this might be going on, those are things I think veterans can really help newer officials with.
And I agree with that. And I want to thank our administrators for sure for everything they do for us. I mean, most schools, if not every school I go to, I've got an administrator that has my back that comes and says, hey, I'm sitting in this middle row. If you need me, let me know. And when we let them know enough is enough, we know that that situation is covered, that situation is no longer going to be on our hands, that they're going to take care of it. And we cannot forget to thank our administrators for everything they do. I mean, they spend the long hours at school, and then next thing they know, they're administrating a quad on a Friday night, waiting to get to their weekend. And they're there protecting the kids, protecting the fans, and protecting the officials. And I cannot be more thankful for them.
Love the shout out for athletic administrators. We work quite a bit with the NIAAA, the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, and they have been really good partners as far as
Yes.
asking us, like, hey, what kind of tools can we give our ADs? Because in the high school space, there's so much turnover in high school athletic administrators. So we're trying to make sure that we're giving some, here's some hospitality for officials guidelines and things like
Yes.
that, where if you're a brand new AD, you may not know that. So NIAAA has been great, and I echo what you say that the job of an AD is a long day and a lot
Yes.
a lot of moving parts for sure.
Yes.
So really appreciate you giving them a little bit of love on the show. So as you progress through your officiating career, what are some of your goals?
So right now I have short-term goals and I have long-term goals. So right now, a short-term goal for me in volleyball is to work a state championship. I can hopefully say that in maybe 2 to 3 years, I can say I'm working a state championship. I had the opportunity of working the AAA VHSL state quarterfinals as an R2 this past year, and I cannot be more thankful for that opportunity to be trusted with that. And that's one of my short-term goals. A long-term goal in volleyball is to be an R1 or R2 on a Division I game. And hopefully I see that in 10 to 12 years. I mean, maybe shorter, it could be longer, but that is my goal there. Basketball right now, I do women's collegiate, and right now is to work a couple more NAI games, maybe move up to Division III, and hopefully one day my end goal is to be a Division I women's basketball official, and I'm hoping maybe in, like I said, 10 to 12 years, maybe shorter, maybe longer, that I can see that goal. It might be far out of reach, but I've got my short-term goal to get me closer to my long-term goal. And even if I never reach my long-term goals, I know that I went down trying and I'll be happy with what I got done.
My gosh. Well, with you, I will tell you this, in the short time that I've known you, you have the tools. You are a student of the game. You're working your tail off. You're humble, which is so important. Officiating is always weird because you have to be
Yes.
confident, but humble at the same time. It's always a fine line that you're walking. But I'm really excited to see where your career takes you and
Thank you.
when you achieve those goals. And I'll be cheering for you every step of the way. I think
Thank you.
the passion that you have for officiating is palpable, and it's really a special thing. I wish I could bottle
Thank
it and sell it somewhere.
you.
So, we've got one last question for something we ask every guest that comes on the show. The From A to Zebra podcast has a mission every week to educate, elevate, and excite our listeners. What can you tell our audience about officiating that accomplishes this mission?
I would just say make sure if you are going to yell at the officials, I know we will never end the harassment of officials, but be on top of your rules as a fan because, yes, we make mistakes and we don't condone yelling. But if you're going to yell, please don't be yelling over the back in a basketball game. There's no such thing as over the back.
Yes.
Push in the back. We've got to push in the back, but we have no such thing as over the back. We just ask for you to be patient with us. I mean, I work USAV volleyball, and I'll be working a match, and I've got 12-year-olds keeping score at the table, and I've got fans yelling at a 12-year-old because she missed a point, and we don't need that. These kids are playing, and then they're going to officiating after playing 3 games in a row. They're tired. So just make sure that you are educating as many people as you can on the rules. If you're sitting with somebody and you hear them yelling at the officials, be like, hey, let's not do that. Let's be nice. Or if they're yelling something and they're completely wrong, please teach them the right thing. If you hear somebody yelling over the back, say, there is no such thing as over the back. There is no such thing as over the back.
That might go on my headstone. There is no such thing as over the back.
I don't think there's a game that I haven't heard over the back, and I'm just standing down there shaking my head saying, there is no such thing as over the back.
You at least get the right rules reference.
Yes. I mean, I don't like to be yelled at when I'm officiating, but if you're yelling at me and you're right, I mean, that might click a light bulb in my head. I mean, if you're going to yell at me when I'm wrong, not when you think you're right because you're 10 rows in the stand and Jimmy jumped up into a boy's.
You're 9,000 feet away.
Yes.
April.
You're in the nosebleeds and you're all the way at the top of the national championship yelling about a walk 1,000 feet away from you.
I mean, if you're that good, you probably should be officiating
Yes.
there. Travis, what a great conversation. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time. You and I are going to be having many more conversations. I know
Yes, ma'am.
offline, I think we've got a lot of plans for the future.
We do.
So I'm excited about that and really appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm and, for taking time. I know how busy you are, to be on the show tonight. So,
Thank you.
to our listeners, thank you for joining us on the From A to Zebra podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and X for more information about the show. Find our full library of podcasts from all seasons on the resources page of refreps.com. Shout out to our friends at RefReps. We'll see you next time.
When I fall without fail, when I land.
Be sure to hit that like button, follow, subscribe, and also catch From A to Zebra on Instagram at from_A_2_zebra, Facebook From A to Zebra Podcast, and on X at From A to Zebra.